everyone, and welcome to Life Beats Radio. I am your host, Dawn Mack, and so glad to have you here with us. It is July 3rd, and you know what tomorrow is. If you're in our great country, we will be celebrating Independence Day. I know many of you are preparing for your celebrations with family and friends, and to take in all the festivities of the day. And so as we are here, and so hope that it will be a great day of celebration and just a great reminder of what a wonderful country that we live in. And this morning, as I was entering my day job, so to speak, I work for a major university, and I was walking from the parking deck into the office building where I work, and or the school building, I should say. And every morning at the top of the hour, the bell tower at this university will chime, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever, the hour is. And immediately following the chiming of the 8 o'clock hour, the bell started chiming the song, God Bless America. And I was so impressed by that because, number one, as most universities, public universities in our great nation are liberal. And so, therefore, to hear a song with the word God in it was just very inspiring for me, and I thought it was incredibly fitting, given what tomorrow is. So that just made my day. That started my day off right, just hearing that. And it really was beautiful coming from the bell tower. So that was a wonderful way to start the morning, considering we've had a ton of rain. So it was not raining on the way in, and that was just kind of a fitting moment, one of those moments you just kind of take in and embrace. So I hope that tomorrow will be great. We are so excited tonight because our guest has written a book that I'm really stoked about. I've been reading through it, and, wow, it is not only eye-opening, but it's enlightening, very, very much a great resource tool, as I think all of you will find as we begin talking with our guest. And to give you a little background on her, she holds a B.F.A. from the University of Pennsylvania, and she worked as an account executive for several Philadelphia radio stations and as a commercial print model, appearing in television commercials in Philadelphia and New York. She is a writer, and she has a passion for communicating spiritual concepts, and most of her lessons have been about understanding how she faces herself wherever she goes. She has written quite a few books, and the one that we're going to be talking with her tonight about is called The What Happens If I. Now, when you hear the title, you just immediately go, this is going to be interesting, and believe me, it is. Great book, and I would love to introduce to you now our guest, Betsy Thompson. Hello, Betsy.
Hi, nice to meet you tonight, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. It is so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for being our special guest. It is an honor to have you. Ever since I got this book in my hands, it's one of those things, the chapters are so short, but I can't put it down. It's because there are so many life lessons in this book. I've just been really blown away at how I've been able to identify with so many of them. And I guess the best place to start is how did this book come about for you personally, and what inspired you to write it?
Well, I was coming home from work one night in California, and I hadn't had a very good day. And I believed in the idea of the mirror theory, or the action-reaction, whatever you put out towards other people is going to come back to you. Whatever emotional stuff you're putting out is coming back to you. But I was having trouble admitting what I must have given to somebody to explain what I had received. And so I had to go through this process for myself of asking, what did I do? What emotional action did I give to somebody else to attract back the unkindness that I got today? And I realized when I was going through this process of asking myself when I had given that to somebody else that this was a process that a lot of people want to know about, because it puts you in a wonderful position of power, because once you identify the reason that you feel so badly that something happened that caused you to feel so badly. Once you identify what it is you did, then you are in the powerful position of doing something else instead. But if you refuse to acknowledge why you're creating an unpleasant day for yourself or why this unpleasantness is coming towards you, you're powerless to change anything. And so then the pattern just repeats itself over and over and over. And so I decided that while I was thinking about this, that what if I could write a book that had a lot of these kinds of questions? What happens if I do this, or what happens if I do that? And then I would let spirit sort of take over and bring me to resolution. So I sort of play the devil's advocate in the book by asking all these questions, but they're all the questions that we have during our life at one time or another. We all contemplate the ideas in this book. So the fact that I contemplated them and you contemplate them, it just means that we all contemplate them. And so that's why, that's how the book got created.
Well, and I love how you play devil's advocate, because really and truth, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, as I was reading through the book, I'm sitting there, epiphany after epiphany going, oh, my gosh, I've actually said this to myself before. I've said this to a close friend, why and what and it's just amazing to me that we do ask these questions, and they are – and it's really interesting because I think sometimes the questions we ask ourselves, we're kind of looking for these far-reaching, deep, meaningful answers when sometimes the answers are staring us in the face or they're within. Yeah. And they're a whole lot simpler than we try to make them be. And one of the chapters that really resonated with me, probably more than any other, was ironically the very first chapter, because I've been guilty of this many times. And again, I think as humans, we want to rationalize the hows and whys of why a situation occurs in our lives, or in the close life of a close loved one, or what have you. And we always insist that there must be one answer. I mean, I don't think our brains sometimes are programmed to think that there could be other possibilities. And I love the way you framed this chapter. And if you don't mind, touch on that a little bit, because I think a lot of people struggle with that very thing.
Yeah, well, I think that, first of all, we all come here with our own priorities and our own path and our own intentions, our own goals, our own way of learning, our own talents, our own gifts, our own everything. And so, therefore, there could possibly be one answer that works for everyone, except that we all have our answers, and we all have our different answers at different times. I mean, the answer, what I think is true and right for me right now, certainly isn't what was true and right for me 30 years ago. And so we evolve, and we have answers that work for us in the time that we are evolving, or the time that we are growing, or the situation we're in. And when we insist that there has to be one answer, I think we miss our own answer, because there's no right for everyone. I have the answers that work for me, you have the answers that work for you, and so that's true for everybody. And for instance, I use this example in the book, like if you walk up to a man on the street with a list of names and you ask him who on this list has the right answers and who has the wrong answers, he only looks at the list and he says, well, let's see who agrees with me. And so you find people in your life who have the similar truths that you have, or the similar answers that you have, and if you change your answers, that's how the physics of emotional action and reaction work. You attract new people into your life who now share your new answers. And that's how we go through life. And so we're always living our truth in the moment, and it might not be the truth we'll live a year from now or even 5 minutes from now, but it's the truth we have in the moment now and the answer that works for us now. And so it just sort of gets rid of all this kind of judgment about who's got the right answer, who's got the wrong answer. Everybody has the answer they need.
And, that really puts it in perspective. I mean, when you think about how simplified that is, when you think about how many times that we seek out the advice and answers from other people, when in truth we already have the answers within that we're asking others about. It's almost like we're looking for that affirmation or that agreement from others. But I love how you explain it in the book, because until I read that, I never thought of it that way before, because when we talk to others and we share our experiences with others, and they're giving us their feedback, that's based on their belief system and the answers they have within themselves, because that's all they have to glean from. I mean, that's all they have to offer us in return when we ask them something. And I think sometimes that's the reason why people get a little bit put off, or they get miffed when someone doesn't agree with them or doesn't say what they want to hear. And that kind of, sums it up well. If you're looking for someone to say something you want to hear, that's what you're already believing and thinking on the inside to start with,
Yeah.
And it's truly interesting. And that was just really amazing to me how you just kind of put it all in perspective. And the truth really is within us. We don't really need to look any further than beyond ourselves, unless, of course, we have some other issues going on and we feel like we need that affirmation from others. But that's a whole other topic, almost. What do you think in terms of – I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it fits in with a chapter of what happens if I insist in agreement, because it's sort of the same idea in that if you think you have the only one answer, then you're always seeking people who are going to agree with you. And when you do that, then all you do is invite disagreement, because people, whatever you resist, and whatever you resist persists. That's what I'm trying to say. So, there is no, you don't need agreement from anyone. You just have to have ideas that agree with you, and stay true to yourself, and live what works for you, and let everybody else live what works for them.
Mhm. And one of the things that I mean, there are so many things in this book. I mean, you've pretty much covered every, I think, personal, not from a personal standpoint of where you're concerned, but just what people go through personally, every possible, what happens if scenario. And one of the ones that I found very, very interesting, because I've known people in my lifetime that were this way, and it just infuriated me. And again, this was another chapter that just was like, if I had just had this book in those moments, But was the chapter on, what happens if I use my sob story to manipulate. And I honestly, I mean, it's so apparent when you see someone doing that, because you see how everyone kind of walks on eggshells and they react to the person, or they know they're going to be seeing the person, and it's like a moment of dread that they're expressing, oh, my gosh, kind of thing. And you really address this and talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, I know about this one a lot, because I used my sob story to the first half of my life, and I've gone through a huge epiphany in terms of the sob story, to realize that we created our own sob story. I'm sure that before I came here into human form, that I had made a decision that what I needed to live through to evolve in the ways that I needed to evolve, either because of what I lived in past lifetimes, or simply because my energy needed to experience that. And so we create the sob story so that it will force us to find a miracle, because once you look at the sob story as a gift instead of a sob story, everything changes. I had a very bad relationship with my mother, and I really felt that she was my sob story, and I used it, and I used it in many different ways throughout my life, not in a healthy way. And when I looked at it finally at a point where I said to myself, what can I find about the sob story that helped me in some way? And as I looked at it that way, I realized that the fact that I couldn't get along with my mother, the fact that she had a totally different philosophy, that her priorities were completely different from mine, that we couldn't agree on anything, was a motivator for me to find a philosophy that did work for me. And once I saw it in that light, it turned the whole relationship around, because then instead of feeling resentful towards her, I started feeling grateful to her. And when I started feeling grateful to her, I could forgive what happened and say that was really what I needed to experience in order to get me where I am now. And then I even could take it a step further and say, why would I need to forgive somebody who was the gift to me to help me find what I was supposed to do in life? And so when we look at the sob story as something that we have given to ourselves for a reason, and we start to look for the reason, we definitely will find it. But, whatever focus we take, if we take this negative focus that, oh, my dear, I've got my sob story, and I'm going to talk about it ad nauseum and make people, think that I'm poor me, all that grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, like a big snowball going down a hill. And as soon as you look at it from the different angle and you start to find what's good about the sob story, what you learned from the sob story, what you understood because you went through it, that becomes a snowball that's very positive and goes down the hill and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the fact that I could do that was at a crucial time in my life when it turned everything around for me.
And you know, I think that is amazing, again, how you put that in perspective, because I think really whatever it is that we face, and whatever, you know, may be our lot in life, so to speak, it's really how we look for the positives in it, no matter what it is. And, you know, in your book, time and again, just kind of goes through the many different scenarios of things in life that we encounter or we think or we feel that just kind of teach us to look for the good, to look for the positive, and to give us a completely different perspective on how to view those things that make us feel the way we do sometimes. And
right.
And the whole, you know, sob story deal is, the chapter on that really does address this, because there are a lot of people that have that issue, and they really make their lives about their sob story. And it's not the other way around a lot of times. The sob story kind of becomes their life, and that's what they live and breathe, and it's what kind of works for them, but it works against them, you know?
Yeah. Yes, because what you always attract energy like you, so you're always attracting people into your life who are living their sob story too, and are living it to the hilt, and it is growing and growing and festering in their life, getting bigger and bigger, which is what happened to me too. So you have to remember that the universe thinks everything is love. And therefore, if you are acting out your sob story all the time, the universe is saying, oh, well, Betsy thinks that a sob story is love, so let's give her lots more sob stories to deal with, because that's how it works. And so you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want to expand in your life? What ideas do you want to become bigger in your life and more important in your life? And then you have to ask yourself, is it the sob story that I want to get bigger and bigger and bigger, or is it the gratitude and the forgiveness and the compassion that you want to get bigger? Because whatever it is you're making out of your sob story is what you're going to get back from other people. So that's because you're always attracting your energy back to yourself. This is what action-reaction is all about, or karma, or the mirror theory, or whatever you want to call this, pulling of energy back to itself. That's how the universe works. The universe shows you how it works by how the cosmos works. Everything's in perfect balance at all moments, and if any of the planets got out of their orbits, then everything would be in chaos. And since we are a part of the universe, we are always living in balance too, and therefore we are always facing our emotional selves and other people.
Yes, we are, and I'm a firm believer in you get what you give, you know. And if you're putting out negative energy, you're going to get that in return. Whether that be attracting people to your life that, you know, have similar, you know, feelings and thoughts and desires, you know, or positive the other way. And it really does make a difference how you treat life, how you look at life, and how you handle those situations that either come at you unexpectedly or just things that you're going through day in, day out, and how you deal with it is really a reflection, I think, sometimes of your inner self. And it also is, you know, it kind of exudes beyond you to other people, and they kind of see this, you know, because there's only so much of a facade that people can put forth. You know, you might can fool some people some of the time, but not all of the time. And there's only, you know, people can only keep up a certain facade for so long before it crumbles around them. So, you know, if you're really being, I feel like if you're being true to yourself and you're giving your best, you're going to get the best back. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. And that best what? You were going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that, you know, I think that the best that someone, you know, what they consider to be their best is defined by them only. I think, you know, the biggest problem we have in society today is that society tends to determine what is the best that a person can be, or what, you know, if you have this nice, extravagant home, oh, you are doing the best you can be. And there's so many different things that have gotten inside of people's heads that I think has become such a confusing, you know, array of chaos for them, and it's difficult sometimes for them to say. I mean, I think they're trying to live up to a standard that they, A, will never achieve, or they think they're nobody if they don't achieve it. And so a lot of that kind of rebounds out into the universe.
We're on an emotional journey. what you're talking about is all the picture of the illusion of what you can see with your eyes. But we are on an emotional journey, and if you don't believe it, then think about your childhood and what you remember from what happened in your childhood. We live millions and millions of moments in our childhood. We only remember the moments that were vivid emotionally, and that is what we will take with us when we leave here. We will take the love we found from what we lived in this lifetime. That's what will go with us when we leave. So we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we want to have in our life? And when people ask me about ask that question, I say that take a piece of paper and write down on a piece of paper all the qualities that you would like to have in the people around you. You want them to be kind, you want them to be considerate, you want them to be respectful of your priorities, you want them to honor you as the person you are. Write a long list of whatever it is you want to attract in the people that you bring to you, and then start being that person, because that's the only way you can attract that person into your life. If you aren't that kind and considerate person, then the person who is kind and considerate is off finding someone else, not you. So you have to be the person you want other people to be, and you have to ask yourself, what is it that is important in your life that you want to have in your life, and then you have to start giving it, because there's no other solution. You cannot be one thing and then attract another thing to you. It doesn't work that way. It's that physics don't work that way. And my book is basically about physics.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
I just think my book is basically about physics, and it's a lot of common sense, and it's not complicated. It just takes honesty to admit to what is going on with yourself. It is never about changing the other people, because you'll automatically change the people with you when you change the way you act out.
Mhm. That is so true, because, I think time and again, especially in relationships between men and women, you hear about this a lot, you see it a lot, where you've got one partner or the other, or they're trying to change, you hear about, oh, he's trying to change me, or she's trying to change me, and you're touching on some very, very important things, because I think a lot of times, it's so important to really get in tune with ourselves and who we are, and strive to be that person that we want to be. Because, as you just said, if we do that, then by natural happenstance, those around us are going to change without us having to do anything to change them. I mean, and it just kind of all works together. And that completely explains why you find time and again where people, find that they're not with the right person in a relationship, or the relationship went south because of, personality conflicts or differences. And I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I think that what you have to do, ask yourself, when, for instance, you take a person who goes from job to job to job because the job that they have never has what they think is supposed to be in their job. So they're always going to, if they can't find what's right about the job they have, they're not going to find what's right about the next job they have. And they're going to find the same people in the next job. They may look different, but they'll be the same people who will be reflecting their own dissatisfaction. So you have to take where you are, and you have to find what's good about it before you can move on and find good about what's next, because you take yourself with you wherever you go. I know that's a trite old saying, but emotionally you are the same person here that you are there, unless you have created something different for yourself. So you have to be where you are, make sure that you're finding what's good about it or what you're learning while you're in that job, because unless you do that, it'll be the same situation in the next job and the next job and the next job. I mean, I know all about this because it was like I kept living the same ideas over and over and over and over again. I was like a gerbil on one of those wheels that's going spinning around, going nowhere, over and over and over again, until I began to ask myself, wait a minute, what about me? What have I, forget about these other people, what am I living? What am I doing that is bringing these people into my life? And until I was willing to acknowledge that, nothing would change. Nothing did change. But as soon as you change your attitude about what's going on, and you see what you've learned from where you are, what you've learned from the people around you, how it's made you wiser in some ways, how it's made you kinder in some ways, whatever, then you're ready to move on. And you won't even have to do a thing, because as soon as the universe recognizes that you have changed your attitude and you're in a different place than the people with you, you automatically move on to different people. It's just the way the universe works.
That is so true. And, I do think that a lot of times we can be our own worst enemy, especially when it comes to relationships, and you make a great point yet again, and that there are some people who just keep trying to reinvent the wheel. That, like you said, the example of moving from job to job to job, or relationship to relationship, because they automatically want to blame everybody and everything else for what's going wrong, and they don't stop long enough to sit and go, hey, could it be me by chance? You know, especially if there's a pattern, and it usually is a pattern, time and again. And I think if people just get in tune with themselves and they accept themselves for who they are and face themselves, it can make all the difference in starting the healing process, you know, of getting them where they are to where they want to be and that person that they desire to be. Would you agree?
Right. There's a big fear about the idea of being honest, and that you're going to think you're a horrible person if you're honest. Well, the thing that's you never, when you're honest, there's this great, huge feeling of release that comes, and a buoyancy that you suddenly have recognized who you are. It's not a feeling of feeling horrible. It's a feeling of feeling powerful and informed and aware. And they're all good feelings. And you don't have to go out and, you know, if you're going to be honest with yourself, you don't have to go out and be honest with everybody else and say, oh, I discovered today that I was cruel the other day. You don't have to do that. This is for you. This is an exercise that you do for yourself. You can share it if you want to, but it isn't about really sharing. It's about really having that understanding within yourself of what it is you're acting out that is creating what you have in front of you in your life. And if you change what you act out, then you change what you attract back. It's really that, it's not that complicated. It only gets hard when we don't like to admit what we've done that has created what we're living. That's where the hard part comes in. But it's just between you and yourself and your soul. It's just between that energy that you want to help you to change and to help you to not even change, but change your attitude. It's not about changing who you basically are, because who you basically are is wonderful. You're this wonderful energy that has come here to live and grow and expand. And so it's just about the attitude around things that aren't working for you the way you want them to work for you.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I think if it's really not a matter of explaining ourselves away when we have these revelations within ourselves about things we've done, or should have done, or could have done. I think it really is just between ourselves and our soul. And because as we have these epiphany moments and we make these realizations, and it gives us those tools and resources to change within, no explanation is needed, because those around us are going to notice that change. They're going to notice that attitude difference, and and that is going to speak volumes without ever having to tell anyone anything.
That's true. And I think that sometimes you don't even need to do anything but change the way you think inside you before you even act out anything, because I changed the situation in my life by asking myself. I was working for some woman who I felt very uncomfortable around, and was always going home and complaining about my day over and over and over again, and complaining about the things she was doing. And I decided that it was really, I didn't want to lose the job, and I felt like I was going to, and so I sat down and I started asking myself what this woman was good at instead of what she was terrible at, and why she had the job, and how she was, and the qualities that she had that were worthwhile and valuable. And as I did that, I started doing that just like I had been in the old habit of finding the negative. I got in this new habit of finding the positive. And I never said anything to anybody else. I never said anything to her face. But the minute I started to change my attitude, she could feel the change in attitude, and it changed the whole relationship, because instead of feeling this negativity from me and this disapproval from me, she started feeling approval and positivity, and she responded to it. And so even just in my thoughts, as I created a different pattern, the energy, she felt that change in energy. You can't hide yourself from people. They feel how you feel whether you speak it or not, because the illusion cannot hide what is real, and what is real is our emotions. And so we are an open book to everyone, even if we don't realize we are, or even if we refuse to admit that we are. We are an open book. People know how we feel about things without even speaking.
That's so true. That is so true. And, our minds can be such a battlefield at times, because, our minds are always going, the wheels are turning, and our thought process, it is really, I've often said it's an art form. You have to really learn to train your brain to think differently about every thing you encounter. And, and just about everything in general, because it is so easy to fall into that whole negative mindset about any and everything, which leads to complaining and venting and all these negative things that come spilling out of us and the negative emotions. But as you said, when you do change the way you think, it really does change your perspective on a lot of things. And people sit up and take notice, because you can't, like you said, you cannot hide from yourself or others, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, I used to think years ago that I remember thinking to myself, I can't control my thoughts. I mean, these thoughts come into me, and then there they are, and they're plunked into my head, and I can't get rid of them, and I'm a victim to my thoughts. And that's not true, because we control our thoughts completely. If we do not like what we are thinking, we can decide to think differently. You ask yourself, what would I rather think than what I'm thinking? And if you can't do it without writing it down, take a piece of paper and write down what you would rather be thinking, and then read it over and over and over again, and say it over and over and again, so that's what you're thinking, because you can't be thinking positively and negatively at the same time. They aren't compatible energies, even in your thoughts, and so you have to focus on what it is you would rather be thinking, what you would rather be focused on, and then do it. You have to be disciplined about doing that, and taking the power for yourself, and saying, I am not a victim of my thoughts. I have the power to change my thoughts if I don't like them.
Yes, and that is something that we just have to really strive to work towards, because so many people do believe they're a victim of their thoughts. They believe they don't have control, that the mind has control of them, they don't have control of it. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. And, well, Betsy, I am very, very excited about your book. I'm sure it's one I'm going to read again and again, and I really can't thank you enough for being our special guest this evening and sharing, your thoughts with us about how we can, be better, and how we can train our brains to think differently so that we can be better.
Well, I've enjoyed sharing with you, and I thank you very much for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to have you back anytime.
Wonderful. I'd love to come.
Well, thank you. Take care and have a great, happy July 4th, and we will be back again with you very soon.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Night.
The book is the What Happens If I book, and the author is Betsy Thompson. And if you would like to visit her website, it's betsythompson.com. That's Betsy with a Y. And or you can reach out to her on Twitter. She is at Betsy O. Thompson. And great book. I would highly recommend that if you've struggled, and I think we all have at some point in time, with any of the things that we've touched on tonight, pick the book up. It is a great reference tool. It is one, the chapters are, maybe a page or two long a piece, and they're great just to take one a day, or to open it up, and if they're, look at the table of contents, find the area you're struggling with, and just read it. Betsy makes so much sense. And, and when you think about it, the things she's saying are things that we all know within ourselves, but if we could just get out of our own way sometimes and just stop and think, it could make all the difference. Because we are emotional beings, and a lot of times we act on our emotions or how our emotions are making us feel in a given moment. And, and that's kind of what guides us sometimes. But it's all about trying to be true to ourselves and true to who we are, and believing and accepting ourselves for who we are, and then working from there to be the best we can be. And if we do that, they say don't be so focused on yourself, but there are times when we need to be, because in order to be the best we can be to those, not only to ourselves, but to those around us, we have to work on ourselves. And it's a daily struggle sometimes when you encounter situations and life happens and you have, work situations or personal situations where you're dealing with people and interacting. As long as we are interacting with others, there are going to be those moments where we're going to have these what happens if I moments. And in that moment, we have a decision to make, how we will handle it and how we will react to it. So we will, again, want to say a huge thank you to our special guest this evening, Betsy Thompson, for being with us. The book, again, is the What Happens If I book. And so I highly recommend it. It's a great must-read. And that is going to wrap our show for this evening, folks. We are going to be off for the next few days to celebrate the 4th and the holiday weekend. So we hope that everyone has a great, happy July 4th tomorrow, and that everyone is safe, and that you get out and enjoy the time with family and friends, and just make the very most of it, make it memorable, and make plenty of memories. And we will be back here, let's see, when will we be back with you? We will be back here with you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, so we hope that you can join us. Thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. If you're brand new to our program, welcome aboard. We're always glad to have new listeners, and we hope that you will be back. So with that, I would say I bid you farewell, good night, and God bless America. Take care, all.